Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And man, I got to talk about my favorite heartfelt city, Chicago, Illinois. Again, here in the Midwest. I'm in St. Louis, but I was originally from Chicago. Still have tons of family there. Go back and forth to Chicago quite a bit. And why in the world is it every holiday weekend, Memorial Day, Labor Day, 4th of July, even Thanksgiving now? If you look in the word, or if you listen to the word Thanksgiving, means giving thanks. We are continuously in the urban community causing so much harm to each other. So over the weekend in Chicago, Thanksgiving weekend, on Saturday, there was a 12 robbery spree, 12 robberies within 1 hour on the south side of Chicago, 12 of them. Then that night, there were 5 teens that got shot at a concert at the United Center on the west side. So that was very devastating. Then there's been several carjackings where individuals are boxing, 2 and 3 cars are boxing in a car. Guys are getting out with weapons, and they are assaulting and stealing, robbing, stealing individuals' cars and their items. And then on Sunday, this past Sunday, there were over 25 robberies and assaults, and individuals were even robbing food trucks. Like 4 food trucks got robbed. Chicago is turning into a third world country. This level of arrogant, egregious behavior where people feel like they can do whatever they want to anybody at any time of the day or night is getting completely out of control. This is turning into a third world. Chicago is turning into a third world country, third world city. No different than Kensington, Philadelphia. The same types of crimes are taking place in San Francisco. We're seeing a spread across America in these major cities where crime has been in an uptick that is going through the roof. And some of this is caused by these libertarian laws. Chicago has this Safety Act where you can get out of jail on a minor criminal charge under your own recognizance and then come back to court 30 days later. And of course, we know anybody that's out here committing deleterious crimes probably not going to show up to court 30 days later to see what their sentence or their conviction is. So there's going to be a high volume of no call, no show in the Illinois state courtrooms. And then who defines what is a minor criminal infraction? How do you define that? But Chicago is going on this entire robbery and assault spree that is becoming very, very alarming. And people don't realize Chicago has a very, very strong history in America. It's the 3rd or 4th largest city in America. You have the Chicago Board of Trade. Chicago is centered in the middle of America. You have Michigan Lake. The first 3 and most powerful positions and people in entertainment and politics were bared out of Chicago. Michael Jordan in basketball with the Chicago Bulls. Oprah Winfrey with her talk show that was based out of Chicago. Billionaire. Michael Jordan, billionaire. And then you had the first black president, Barack Obama, straight out of Chicago. So Chicago has a strong base for successful African American people. For those who don't know, historically, the Playboy magazine and company, Hugh Hefner, started in Chicago. Shaka Khan's from Chicago. Earth, Wind, and Fire from Chicago. Robert Townsend from Chicago. So there's been a plethora of people that have done great things in politics and entertainment and sports that are that were not born and raised, but some born and raised, but others that have made a name for themselves in an economic base that they were able to propel into multimillionaires and billionaires. And for Chicago to be so isolated in the sense that anything is happening each and every day, and especially the people of color, is somewhat appalling. You had a program that started in Chicago called Cure Violence, which is a not-for-profit program started by Dr. Gary Slutkin out of the University of Chicago to help curb and mediate gun violence. That has done had some moderate effects on the social paradigm and cultural paradigm in these urban communities. But how come we never hear anything from some of these leaders, Barack Obama, Oprah, Michael? They made a name for themselves in Chicago and then they left. Now, are they fully responsible for what's going on in Chicago? Absolutely not. But there has to be some kind of systemic design with all of these murders, assaults. You have the Chicago Board of Trade, you have the Sears Tower, the surveillance, the Magnificent Mile. The surveillance around Chicago has to be at a premium. And for all of these robberies and assaults, robbing food trucks, people trying to make a basic living, now the police are telling individuals at nighttime to walk in groups. People have been assaulted on the campuses of DePaul University. People are going, young folks are going up to college campuses and robbing college students. So nobody is above the fray for criminal activity or criminal assaults to be taking place against them, whether you white, black, rich, poor, whatever. It is happening everywhere in Chicago, and this is not making any sense. You got Mayor Brandon Johnson that's there now. They couldn't stand Lori Lightfoot, who was the ex-mayor, both African-American people. Chicago's down like 1,000 cops that they need. There's been a big conspiracy against the government that are these murders being committed for organ transfer, where young black people with healthy organs are being killed, and then the hospitals, the morgues, or the police, the hospital, and the morgues, all in cahoots to allow this type and magnitude of violence to take place. I'm not really sure, but the volume and the level of violence that is taking place in Chicago, there were over 20 robberies on Sunday, 20 to 25 robberies on Sunday in Chicago. Now this is what the national media is telling us, so you can't even count the numbers that people didn't call the police or didn't make it to the national news. And then the day before, there were 12 robberies in 1 hour. 1 hour. And 5 teens got shot at the United Center after a concert. And this is not only happening in Chicago, it's happening in Philadelphia, New York, California. But I think the volume and the level and the abrasiveness in these crimes that are taking place bring Chicago to the forefront. Also, you have Chicago's a sanctuary city, a migrant city, and they have done a terrible job managing those affairs when there's something like 20 or 30,000 migrants coming into Chicago a day. There will be well over 1 million migrants in Chicago in no time, if they're not already at 1 million right now. And they're living in outside tents. It's extremely cold, living in police stations and hospital waiting rooms. And now they're talking about building a base camp that's on top of contaminated and toxic land and soil, which makes not an ounce of sense, or shows the callousness of the city government, the state government, and the federal government. But we have got to get Chicago under control, and to have not heard anything from some of the people that garnered their fame and their fortune from Chicago, like Michael Jordan, like Oprah Winfrey, like President Barack Obama. I mean, he was the ex-president. How much power do you have? We need to have some people need to speak out and talk about all of this craziness that's taking place in Chicago. I have several family members that still live in Chicago. Chicago is turning into an unsafe haven of foolishness and deleterious behavior that's completely inhumane, immoral, unethical, unspiritual, ungodly-like. And in my YouTube channel, the Trevor Donald Experience, it's about manifesting your truth in a positive way so we can live in this country, in this world, with peace, harmony, and some civility. And Chicago has turned into an uncivilized city. There is complete civil unrest. Defunding the police is not the answer. They need more police officers, not less. And something needs to take place soon, or Chicago is going to explode into a complete city of chaos at some point. So please speak out. The citizens of Chicago are tired, white, black, blue, green, whatever color you are. They need to get this migrant crisis under control and take care of these people. But even before that, they need to take care of the citizens, the tax-paying citizens in the city of Chicago. The number of robberies that are taking place on a daily basis, and especially during holiday times, the amount of murders and assaults, which is completely antithetical and hypocritical for the whole celebration of a holiday. It turns into a disaster zone, and it makes not an ounce of sense. Thanksgiving is about giving thanks to family and friends that you love and care about, not disarming, disharmony, conflict, and hurtful and harmful behaviors to mankind. This is not making Chicago, the heartbeat of America, a safe and civilized city. And it's an embarrassment, and it is a scary moment. We're having a purging of the entire city of Chicago. The number of murders and assaults are going through the roof. There's only so much a non-for-profit like Cure Violence can do. There's only so much that the police can do. They need to increase the police force, and the government needs to come in and make Chicago a safe haven again. Corporate America, there's a 30% vacancy rate in downtown Chicago along the Magnificent Mile. Tourism is being affected by it. Jobs are being affected. When companies leave your city, they take their employees with them. That ends up with vacant buildings. Like I said, there's a 30% vacancy rate in Chicago, and the future looks very bleak if this does not get under control. And people like President Barack Obama, your Michael Jordans of the world, your Oprah Winfreys, your Steve Harveys that all made their money and garnered their fame from Chicago should speak out and try to come back and help, along with the federal and state government officials. And we need to make Chicago a better place. So manifest your truth. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. There were over 40 or 50 robberies in a 2-day span between Saturday and Sunday in Chicago. Multiple shootings, multiple carjackings. That's become a thing. They're telling people not to walk alone at night, even as a couple, to walk in groups. And that's not the way we should live in America. That sounds like a third world civilization, and we're supposed to be a first world country. Let's take Chicago back from crime and degradation and make it a healthy and beautiful place like it should be.